The first question is we're kind of trying to get a gauge. Um, how did you kind of come upon benefit corporations? Like, how did you become kind of aware that these were a thing that, companies can get certified with?
My previous firm, before I worked on by myself, we were a benefit corporation through the B Corp. Before that, I had really only known about it. I think I'd probably seen that like that B Corp logo that people put on things, especially like food packaging.
Okay.
Um, and so I went through the process with B Corp with my old company, and then when I left, I didn't have the five or $10,000, or the time to really go through that certification process. So that's when I heard about BCFG because I had some friends. Yeah, I had like two or three friends who were BCFG.
Was it like the cost was a big reason why?
It
If you want to,
was because it was, I think, to get, benefit or, B Corp certified, I mean, I think it was somewhere between five and $10,000. And to get certified through BCFG, I think it was 300.
wow,
Well,
that is
yeah, it was just a
drastic.
staggering difference. The paperwork process was also a lot lighter.
Hmm.
There were, I think, a series of about 60 to 65 questions with BCFG, and I was able to do that in a matter of weekends of just sitting down and writing my thoughts and then double checking some of my assumptions about my own work. Whereas I don't know how quickly other corporations get it when they go for the B Corp.
Yeah, so
That
according
is
to Tom, that process is relatively longer and a little bit more extensive.
Oh my God. Yeah, I would imagine. I would think it would be something like, yeah, like 6 months to a year or something
Hmm.
or longer. I know that our company took, we probably, oh my gosh, we might have taken 18 months to do it.
Wow, that long. And in that 18 months, is it, constant communication or are there kind of
I don't know
delays?
because we had our office administrator kind of shepherding it through the process, and then when she had
Mhm.
questions, she would ask us, which
Okay.
if she didn't understand or didn't know what they were asking for.
Hmm.
Um, and I think too, it probably also happened. I mean, if you know it's going to be a long, staggering process, it's not like you're going to sit down one weekend and try to just knock it out.
Yeah, it felt like
Or,
homework.
you're going to say, well, I'll work on it this weekend. And then when I have a slow moment in a month from now, then maybe I'll pick it back up again.
Uh-huh. Do you use the certification as kind of a highlight to potential clientele? Like, hey, we are this certified benefit corporation, or is this more kind of like an internal thing?
It's a mix of both.
Hmm.
I don't do a lot of advertising. I think I have the little logo about web page, but
Hmm.
I don't have it anywhere else. And it's funny, like I don't even have it on business cards or any sort of other like communication. It's funny. So when I'm meeting new clients and I talk about me and what I'm doing,
Hmm.
I actually don't mention that I'm a benefit corporation.
Do you might know kind of like the underlying reason for that? Is it just because you assume people don't really know what that means?
I I mean, part of it is quite honestly, I hate sales pitches. And I feel like this is going to sound so contradictory, but
Of course, yeah, no
sometimes
worries.
when companies have all of these different certifications, it feels a little bit like virtue signaling. Like,
Hmm.
oh, look what we did. No, it's funny because when I do have clients or friends that I think should consider BCFG
Yeah.
certification, like I tell them about it. In fact, I
Hmm.
was just telling my Pilates teacher that last week. I said, "Hey,
Get this
you might
done.
want to do this."
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. I think it just, but also too, it's just not part of my thought process when I sit down with the
With a
client.
client. Yeah. It's not like something that kind of comes up naturally or something that,
Yeah.
okay.
Of course, I have no shame in talking about it, but
Yeah.
I guess it's just how, like, my brain hasn't, like, when I'm there meeting with a new potential client, it just doesn't come up to me to say, oh, by the way, I'm a, certified benefit corporation.
In those instances, we've been kind of finding because, this is our first kind of time working with Tom, and
Mhm.
it was a real struggle because we really didn't know what benefit corporations were. And
Mhm.
the problem that we're kind of running into is that a lot of people just aren't really aware of what that means, like what it means to be a benefit corporation. What are those standards that you're upholding? So it's really good to hear that, it's not really that you don't know what it is, but it's just that it just doesn't come up like naturally. So kind of driving down that same line, were there any like, I know you mentioned your friends, were there any other driving factors that kind of pushed you into getting that certification?
I realized once I was going through the process of answering the questions
Mhm.
that it was helping to inform what policies I was going to have. For example, like donating back to the community, a percentage of revenues,
Mhm.
or making sure that I was taking on a certain amount of pro bono work. And also, am I volunteering? Am I doing other good things in the community? And then also it makes you think about who you're working with. So
Mhm.
especially in construction and architecture, it's really white and it's really male. I don't have any like metrics about like me trying to work with more providers or
Mhm.
consultants of color or clients of color, but it tends to happen
Mhm.
more if I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, so it did offer like it was great that I started doing it when I was because I think I did it about the same time as I was setting up my firm. And
mhm.
so it just helped me like lay some policies into place.
Yeah, it's like from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's a way to not, it's the word is not necessarily keep yourself accountable, but just keep yourself aware of just these things that you kind of should be focusing on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And then in addition to my firm, so I own my office building, so I rent out spaces to other businesses.
Mhm.
One's a BCFG company as well. But it was funny. So then when I went through to kind of set up what my business practices around the building were, I basically am doing all the same things that I did, although I'm not, I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's really just a shell corporation, so I'm not actually going for BCFG
Certification.
certification, but I'm
Yeah.
just trying to do the right things.
Yeah. I do want to ask, so one of the things that we kind of want to accomplish is just having this um kind of locality with the certification because Tom
Mhm.
really wants to focus on the state of Oregon. And it sounds like from your testimonies that, you're recommending it to a lot of people that you kind of know. And so like me, do you have anything that you could think of that would be important to some local business owners in Oregon specifically?
I don't know if it really pertains to Oregonian businesses.
Hmm.
I'd like to think that we have a high ethical regard of what we do here.
Hmm.
I know, but I think everybody does. It's just that they have
Yeah.
value sets. And so, what is interesting is like, I don't like my CPA doesn't know that I'm a benefit corporation because there's absolutely no tax status with it. I guess what I'm saying is it's interesting. There's no actual governmental, other than I think I've stated somewhere that I'm a benefit corporation,
Hmm.
my incorporation paperwork. Other than that, there's nothing to actually verify what I'm doing or how I'm running business. I just think it makes you think about who you work with,
Okay. That's
and
like,
those should be local people. I mean, when you can, right? It's keeping
mhm.
keeping dollars local.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but yeah, sorry, I don't have any.
No, that
I
was
feel like I
great.
have no
No,
brilliant kernels of brilliance on
I
that
I
question.
promise you all the information that you've been giving us is just so helpful and just kind of moving us in a direction. So we really appreciate it. And so the next question I have for you here is, have you noticed any improvements or changes in your company after being certified and joining, this benefit corporation community?
Yeah, I do like being part of the community because you get to talk to other owners who are not in your industry.
Hmm.
And sometimes there's overlap between what you do and how you do it. Because now I think my CPA is a BCFG certified company. You just begin to connect with people with similar values, and you get at these happy hours and events. There's a little bit of a network of people that you get to like, hey, you could ask your question to. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm struggling with this issue. Like, how did you solve it? And then, of course, there's always support from Tom when something comes up. When an
Hmm.
issue comes up, that seems to affect all businesses, especially on a state or federal level, he'll often send out some sort of memo or something on it. There was a business conference, a Better at Business Together summit this spring.
Hmm.
Now, it was not led by BCFG, but it was led by Rational Unicorn Legal Services, and they're I would say they're closely intertwined with BCFG, but it was another example of folks getting together with the same issues in the same room or the same values in the
Yeah.
same room and kind of sharing ideas.
Hmm.
And then, of course, it's always nice. I don't know if I've gotten any referrals, to new clients through BCFG yet, but I feel like I have kind of referred people around in my life, like, oh, actually, you're looking for a CPA, go talk to Derek.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, like the companies that are and that you kind of talk to tend to be in your mind a little fresher when you do have to kind of send those people off.
right. Yep.
Is there any like difficulties or challenges that kind of come with it being certified?
No, I mean, there's paperwork that I have to do every year. That's it.
Yeah.
It just makes me, kind of stay current on what I'm doing and,
Hmm.
make me see where I'm at and reflect on the past year.
Hmm.
But I don't, yeah, there's no negative side to it.
Okay. So it would
If I
just be,
may,
yeah.
if I may interject really fast, I'm personally curious about if there have been any challenges or difficulties that being certified has helped you navigate. Any external challenges, like you just said, like, kind of a lot of organizations were affected by more federal decisions and things like that. Could
Mhm.
you talk a little bit more about that? Especially I'm really curious because as our nation and like world is further being impacted by things like AI and advancing technologies. I'm just curious how maybe being certified has helped you in the past and will help you
Well, when
now.
I do come up against the question of like, how should I run business? I'll reach out to those contacts. So in the building here, there's three of us that are all tenants, and
Mhm.
we flip-flopped spaces. Everybody moved around because one of the companies, now have like 4 or 5 employees in their space every day. So it made me realize, oh shoot, like I need to go take a look at the costs of running this building every month and see, because I had to adjust rents. So
Mhm.
I I got into this conversation, so I reached out to Tom and I said, "Hey Tom, do you know anybody who's like a commercial broker or, in the landlord business or property management business? Because I'm having questions about what what is it ethical for me to charge?
Mhm.
Knowing that just kind of being a landlord it can be a dirty business."
Yeah.
And so he connected me with somebody else who's in the BCFG community. She's a property manager, and I think she's also a commercial broker. And so we just had a nice conversation via email about like what should you be doing? What shouldn't you be doing? How much should you be charging? As opposed to just charging as much as I can. And so that was what basically BCFG was a community of connections, and it allowed me to find the other people who are dealing with the same issues and kind of having those same kind of conundrums.
So how often does that happen where you're kind of emailing Tom and asking him for kind of advice or just suggestions with things like that?
I would say, I don't know, it's probably not once a month. It's
Uh-huh.
probably once every couple of months.
Okay.
In fact, he posted green business practices or something. It was some sort of blog post less than a month ago. And I think the only energy saving thing that was listed in the article was getting a new HVAC system, which is like $1,000 plus. And I said, "Hey, Tom, by the way, here's a bunch of other things that I've learned as a building owner and an architect that you can
Oh,
do that totally
wow.
improve it." And he said he was really great. It's funny. He's like, "Great. Do you want to like flesh that out a little bit more, and we'll publish it?" Yep. Okay. Okay. I was a smart ass. I wasn't, I said, "Sure, let's do it." So
Yeah.
All right. I have my fair share of questions for you.
great.
Well, by fair share, it's just a small. First question is, what would you, and you kind of touched on this earlier, so I was excited, but what would you tell a small business that's considering becoming BCFG certified? Like any tips?
Don't be intimidated by it. I think that as business owners, we are used to interacting with the IRS and the state of Oregon. And we're used to anytime you put together numbers and present, you have to turn them in to somebody, there's always this feeling of stress. It goes back to, like being back in school and having to get the answers right.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was so, I mean, it's really about helping you. It's never, Tom's never gonna like slap you on the hand and say, but you shouldn't be doing that or you should be doing this. But it's much more helpful and kind of open-ended, I would say. It's about growth and acknowledgement.
Love that. How would you describe BCFG to someone who isn't as aware of sustainable businesses and business models?
I mean, I would just describe it to them as this is a way to see how good you're being. Any industry, there's so many standards out there to measure how good you are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would think this is one of the more clean and honest and approachable ones.
And on that, I was actually going to ask, we did notice, just doing our own research, that there are a lot of different certifications. And since you have had experience with B Corp, what would you say? I mean, you kind of touched on the major differences, but is there anything better about BCFG that you think are worth noting?
I said it's locally based, so there's a community
Yeah,
here.
that's
If I were trying to do this from Eugene or Klamath Falls, that probably would have been a different experience.
Mhm. Totally. What makes being BCFG certified, or really any certified businesses stand out over non-certified ones?
I think it's just a little extra credential. If I actually started marketing
The little
the blue
emblem.
circle.
So would you say it's more for like internal purposes, like when you're running a business, it's more of just it's not so much about like the consumer, whereas just like how you guys run things and
I think if I wasn't providing professional services, like if I was actually providing products, right? If I was a coffee shop or something, I probably would ramp it up. You'd see the logo on the front door, you'd see it, on advertising. I service people who come to me.
yeah.
So by the time they've most of the people who walk in the door have already decided to work with me if it at all makes sense.
Before working with Tom, I didn't really know that it was a thing. Well, even like certified B Corp, like I didn't really know what it meant. And now
Mhm.
it's funny because I'll notice it whenever I walk past stores.
Yeah.
Like I
Yep.
was walking past like the Doc Martin store and it was like certified B Corp. And I was like, I know what that is now. I totally get what you're saying. It's definitely kind of a different
Hmm.
game, I guess, when it comes to product versus service. So